Last class we have started with periodontal regenerative procedures. In the last class we have seen about the different non-graft associated periodontal regenerative procedures. So we will continue with graft associated regenerative procedures. In non-graft associated procedures we have seen about root biomodification, guided tissue regeneration and root biomimicking agents for regeneration of bone. Today we are going to see about graft associated regenerative procedure. The basic difference between non-graft associated and graft associated is here we are going to use bone or its bone substitutes to regenerate the bone. When it comes to regeneration with a graft associated regeneration, we have to know about three concepts of how regeneration happen: osteogenesis, osteoinduction and osteoconduction. What is osteogenesis? Osteogenesis is the ability of the graft material to induce bone formation. These graft materials have the property of inducing osteoblast formation and regeneration of bone. The gold standard example for osteogenic bone graft is autografts, the grafts which have been taken from the same person. The second type is an osteoinductive graft materials. Osteoinductive or these materials have the property of attracting the osteoblast to the site and induce bone formation. The bone graft itself doesn't have the property of inducing osteoblast formation. It will just attract the osteoblast from other site to the site of the regeneration for regenerating the bone to the site. Whereas osteoconductive is just an inert material to fill the space. It doesn't have any property of inducing osteoblast or attracting the osteoblast to the site. These osteoconductive materials will basically act like a biological filler, so that when the osteoblast come to the site, it will repopulate to the site and start regenerating. As such, the material doesn't have any property of inducing or producing or attracting the osteoblast to the site. So coming on to the types of bone grafts, based on the harvesting tissue where we are going to harvest the graft from, the bone graft can be classified into autograft, allograft, xenograft and alloplast. So autograft basically a graft which is harvested from the same person, either from an intraoral site or from an extraoral site. The graft which is harvested from the same person. These graft have the ability of osteogenesis, osteoinduction and osteoconduction. So these autogenous bone grafts are the gold standard bone grafts where it has the ability to do all three things: the osteogenesis, osteoinduction and osteoconduction. So the regeneration of bone will be better in an autogenous bone graft. The next level of bone graft is an allograft. These are graft material harvested from the same species but different individual. For example, the graft material has been harvested from a cadaver, dead person bone has been removed, treated with chemical agents so that it will not have any immunological response, and have been used as a graft material for the recipient site. So these materials doesn't have the property of osteogenesis. It will not induce osteoblast formation, but it has the ability of osteoinduction and osteoconduction. It can attract the osteoblast and it can act as a scaffold to be play in the place of regeneration, so that the osteoblast can come and repopulate and regenerate the site. The third variant of graft material is xenograft. These are graft materials which have been harvested from different species, most commonly harvested from cow or ox. So these are the two animals where the graft material will be harvested. The fourth type of graft material is alloplastic material. These are synthetic biocompatible material which can be used as a substitute for bone graft. The xenograft and alloplast doesn't have the property of osteogenesis or osteoinduction. These two materials will just act like a scaffold an osteoconductive material which will be stay in the place until the bone graft or the osteoblast come to the site and start regenerating. So other type of classification for bone grafts is block graft versus particulate graft. Block graft or graft the cortical bone, the entire piece of cortical bone or the synthetic material is taken for grafting as a whole block, whereas particulate graft or these cortical bone or synthetic particles are grounded into a smaller size particles which will resembles the osteoblast, so which can attract the osteoblast and regenerate the defect site. So we'll see one by one. We'll start with autogenous bone graft. These are gold standard of bone augmentation procedures. This is a best graft material which can be harvested for regenerative procedures. This can be harvested either as a block graft or as a particulate graft. When it comes to block graft, comparing the block graft versus particulate graft as an autogenous bone graft, the particulate graft have a better revascularization and faster healing compared to a block graft because the density of the block graft is higher, so the revascularization will take longer time. Since it is a block graft which is more of inorganic material and the organic material are embedded inside the inorganic material, the osteogenic activity will be less compared to one particulate graft, because particulate graft we have already crushed into pieces, so the organic components have been exposed, so which have a better osteogenic potential compared to a block graft. When it comes to extraoral site versus intraoral site, intraoral grafts are better compared to extraoral graft materials. Intraoral graft materials will have a better revascularization and better incorporation to the donor site, as well as it has a minimal resorption rate compared to the extraoral bone graft. So coming on to the advantage and disadvantage of the autogenous bone graft. The advantage of autogenous bone graft is it has the capability of osteogenesis, so it can induce osteoblast formation and bone formation resulting in regeneration. The block graft that can able to maintain the shape and form of the defect, and it has the ability to correct any size and shape deformities, but it has the it can have the ability to eliminate any possibility of immunological reactions, because we are going to use the graft from the same person, so there will not be any antigen antibody reaction to happen. These are the advantage of using an autogenous bone graft. The disadvantage is obviously a second surgical site. You need a second surgical site for harvesting the graft, either a mandible, a ramus or a chin, or a maxillary tuberosity or a extraction socket in the intraoral sites, or extraoral sites like anterior iliac bone graft or posterior iliac bone graft. You need a second surgical site which is going to associated with the morbidity of the donor site and unpredictable bone resorptions. The autogenous bone graft have shown studies that it has a faster rate of resorptions compared to regeneration. So we cannot predict the resorption rate of this autogenous bone graft. And since we have two surgical sites, the healing period will be longer. So we have a longer recovery period and difficulty in managing soft tissue coverage, increased treatment time, because we are going to do two surgeries, one for the donor site, one for the recipient site. So that is going to increase the surgical time for autogenous bone graft. So autogenous block graft. So these are block grafts which are harvested either from cortical bone, cancellous bone or iliac bone graft. The cortical bone examples, you can harvest the bone from the mandible, either from the external oblique ridge, the ascending ramus, or from the chin, or you can take it from the extraoral sites like cranium, the head bone, or you can get a cancellous bone block graft from maxillary tuberosity, or inner cancellous bone from the maxilla, or corticocancellous bone from the mandible. or extraorally you can take it from the anterior iliac or posterior iliac bone. So what is the advantages of or use of this autogenous block bone grafts? These can able to used in the treatment of width deficiency and height deficiency. You can regenerate the width defect and vertical height, as well as horizontal as well as the vertical height component can be treated with the help of this block graft. Coming on to intraoral versus extraoral. So obviously the intraoral grafts have a better revascularization property and it has a more stable graft compared to an extraoral or an endochondral bone graft. The endochondral bone graft resorbs faster compared to the intraoral graft, and the extraoral graft will take a longer time for revascularization compared to the intraoral side graft. The membranous bone graft such as the mandibular bone graft which will undergo a less resorption rate compared to an iliac bone graft. The resorption rate of an mandibular graft, the ramus graft, will be lesser compared to the iliac bone graft. So the intraoral harvested graft have the property of minimal resorption, enhanced revascularization and better incorporation to the donor site. So it is always better to get an intraoral bone graft rather than going for an extraoral bone graft. So if you want to reconstruct the entire mandible, then you have to go for an extraoral site. So for a periodontal defect, an intraoral bone graft site is more than enough as a donor site for regeneration. So these are the pictures of an iliac bone graft. You can see the top right corner, the iliac bone graft, and the harvesting of chin bone graft in the lower two graft harvesting photographs are chin graft harvested from the mandible. So this is a picture of ramus bone graft harvesting, ramus graft which is harvested from the ascending ramus, external oblique ridge. You can see the incision have been given in the external oblique ridge and the bone has been harvested. So these are all the sites which have lesser morbidity compared to other sites and which have rich in bone materials, the cancellous and cortical bone materials. Maxilla versus mandible. So how to choose which is for both recipient site as well as the donor site? Maxilla is better compared to mandible. Why maxilla is better? Because the maxillary bone is more porous and it have more vascularity. So the graft harvested as well as the recipient site in the maxilla will get a better result compared to a mandibular surgical site. Since the mandible is having a thick cortical plate, it will have less vascularity. If you are going to harvest the bone, the cortical bone will be more thicker, so it will take longer time for revascularization compared to a maxillary bone graft. Same like that when it comes to recipient site, the surgical site, the maxillary site will have more porous bone, so the blood vessels and blood particles comes to the site of regeneration will be faster compared to a mandibular bone. If you are going to do a regenerative procedure in a mandible, you have to give some perforations on the cortical plate so that the bone will be revascularized with the blood cells. So coming on to the critical success, what is the critical success when we are thinking about autogenous bone graft? Obviously the stability of the graft material, the condition of the recipient site, infection, resistance to resorption and soft tissue coverage after the graft placement. These are all the important things we have to note about success when it comes to regeneration. The stability of the graft material should be stable and without mobile for longer time for its regeneration. The recipient site should be clean and free of infection so that the recipient site can repopulate osteoblast to the site and result in regeneration. So next graft material is allograft. Allografts are graft material which has been harvested from same species but from different individuals. So allografts used in the treatment of intrabony defects are examples like freezed cancellous iliac bone or a cryopreserved bone from the head, the cranial bone, a freezed dried bone graft or a demineralized freezed dried bone graft. Most of the time the allograft will be available either as a block graft or as a particulate graft. For an intrabony defect, we usually use a particulate graft in the form of either a freezed dried bone graft or an decalcified freezed dried bone graft. What is the difference between a freezed dried and a decalcified freezed dried? The freezed dried bone graft, the cortical bone is deflated, cut into pieces, washed with an absolute alcohol, deep frozen and freeze dried and vacuum sealed. So there is no decalcification. We are not going to remove any inorganic materials from the graft which we are going to harvest. That is what freezed dried bone graft. The same freezed dried bone graft, when we remove the inorganic components, we decalcify the inorganic components from the bone graft, then it is called as decalcified freezed dried bone graft. What is the advantage of using a decalcified freezed dried bone graft? Is these bone grafts, the inorganic material will be removed so that the organic materials like proteins present inside the bone graft will be exposed. Once these proteins are exposed, these proteins helps in inducing or attracting the osteoblast to the site more faster compared to a freezed dried bone graft, because freezed dried bone graft, it requires the inorganic component to resorb, then only it will expose the organic components, the proteins, then the proteins will attract the osteoblast. Whereas in a decalcified bone graft, the proteins are already exposed for it to attract the osteoblast and result in regeneration. Next type of graft material is xenograft. These are all graft harvested from different species, non-human species. We are going to harvest the graft and used it as a graft material. Since it is harvested from other species, we may think about biocompatibility and autoimmune response. So for that reason, in these graft materials, the organic components will be removed. In the previous allograft, we have seen the inorganic component will be removed and the organic component will be exposed. Whereas in xenograft, we are going to remove the organic components so that there will not be any immunological response for this graft material. But the inorganic components will be kept. These inorganic components going to help us like a scaffold. It is going to stay in the place like a filler to prevent epithelium to repopulate to the site, and helps the blood cells to come to the site and helps in regeneration. The fourth type of graft material is alloplast. Alloplast are synthetic inorganic inert materials which can be used as a substitute for the bone graft. These materials are these materials should have a biocompatibility and bioactive materials which should have an osteogenic potential, and it should be resorbable in a long run. So basically these materials should resorb and replace the bone there. That is the main idea of using these materials. Based on their resorbable capability, it is basically classified into resorbable and non-resorbable membranes. Some examples of resorbable membrane are bioceramics, beta tricalcium phosphate, hydroxyapatite, calcium sulfate, calcium carbonate. Some example for non-absorbable materials are porous hydroxyapatite, dense hydroxyapatite, and bioglass. So we'll see what are these materials. These materials, for example, bioceramics, these are mainly composed of calcium phosphate, which is with the ratio of calcium and phosphate in a similar ratio of bones, the inorganic component of bone. Basically the inorganic component of bone is composed of calcium and phosphate. So we try to create materials which can mimic the inorganic component of the bone so that it can be replaced by the inner bone cells and helps in regeneration. So beta tricalcium phosphate is a porous form of calcium phosphate, hydroxyapatite. These are materials which is available either as a porous non-resorbable, solid non-resorbable or solid resorbable material. There are three types of hydroxyapatite materials available, either a non-resorbable or a resorbable. Ultimately we need a resorbable material so that it can resorb over a period of time and replace it with a bone. We want the bone to be replaced by the graft material. That is the main idea of keeping these materials in place. Why we want a scaffold there? Because the epithelial cells will regenerate faster compared to a connective tissue cell. A connective tissue cell regenerates faster compared to a bone cell. Bone cell will take minimum 6 months to completely regenerate, whereas a connective tissue cell will take 21 days for its complete regeneration, whereas epithelial cells will take only 7 days for its regeneration. So we don't want an epithelial cell or a connective tissue cell to come and repopulate the site, so that it prevents the bone cells from forming there. So these materials will have a longer resorption rate of over a period of 3 months to 6 months, so that it will keep the space empty for these bone cells to come and regenerate to the site. That is the basic idea of using these inert materials like xenograft or alloplast in the site, so that it will take longer time of resorption, so that within the time frame the osteoblast can come there and start regenerating the bone. When the alloplast or xenografts resorbs, at the same time this osteoblast will replace it with a regenerative bone. Other materials like bioactive glass, these are all non-resorbable graft materials which are used as an inert filler for the site. We want to fill the site and we doesn't expect any better regeneration, then we can use this non-resorbable material so that it will stay in that place for a longer time. So coming on to the technique. So when we come to the technique, we start with patient selection. When it comes to patient selection, when you want to do a regenerative surgery in a patient, the patient should be in a good physical health. The patient should demonstrate an acceptable level of oral hygiene, whereas the full mouth bleeding score should be less than 5 and full mouth plaque score should be less than 10. So FMBS should be less than 5 and FMPS should be less than 10, which is called as an acceptable level of oral hygiene for regenerative procedure. And the patient should be committed for a long-term maintenance program, because this will take almost 6 months for its complete regeneration. So the patient should be under maintenance for at least 6 months for the regeneration period. So the patient should be committed for a long-term maintenance period, and the patient should be ideally a non-smoker. Once you select the patient, then the defect selection. When it comes to defect selection, ideal defect for regenerative procedure will be a deep intrabony defect with either 2-wall or 3-wall defect will be a better choice for a regenerative procedure rather than a 1-wall defect or a shallow intrabony defect. Shallow intrabony defect and 1-wall defect should be treated with resective surgeries rather than regenerative procedures. For an ideal defect, regenerative procedures, you need a deep intrabony defect either with 2-wall or 3-wall defect, or a furcation involvement which is grade 2. A cul-de-sac type of furcation involvement should be there for regenerative procedure. Coming on to the procedure, preoperative procedure, you have to perform a adequate plaque control, and the patient should show a good plaque control maintenance. And if the patient requires any occlusal adjustments, you have to do the occlusal adjustments and splinting before your surgical procedure. At the start of your surgical procedure, start the procedure with an antimicrobial rinse such as 0.12% chlorhexidine gluconate for 30 seconds immediately before the surgery. This will prevent any infection to the surgical site during the surgery or post-surgically. After your preparation, you have to start with anesthesia. For regenerative procedure, it is always advised to go for a block graft rather than a local infiltration. A regional block, either an inferior alveolar nerve block or a posterior superior alveolar nerve block, is a better for patient comfort compared to a local infiltration. You can give local infiltration for vasoconstriction and hemostasis, but not for a pain control for patient anesthesia. So better give a regional anesthesia, either an inferior alveolar nerve block or a posterior superior alveolar nerve block. After anesthesia, start with the flap. So we already see what are all the flap designs which is done for regenerative procedures. Most frequently it will be a conventional flap or an papilla preservation flap, because we need adequate amount of soft tissue to cover the graft material post surgically. We don't want the graft material to get exposed. So the best option for a regenerative procedure will be a conventional flap or an papilla preservation flap. So inside the flap, once the flap is done, you elevate a full thickness flap and see the intrabony defect. Visualize the bone and infrabony defect. Once you raise the flap, then start with debridement, root debridement and bone debridement. So remove all the granulation tissues, do a root planing and remove the irregular borders of the bone, either with an curette or with an high-speed handpiece or with a chisel. You remove the irregular bone, remove the local factors which is present in the surface of the root with the help of a root planing. Once you finish root planing, apply citric acid, a root biomodifying agent, either a citric acid or a tetracycline agent, to remove the smear layer and demineralize the root surface to expose the collagen. Once you prepare the surface, select graft material. So graft material selection is based on the clinical considerations, which type of graft material you want to go. If you think the patient morbidity is there, then you cannot harvest any bone graft from the patient. Autogenous bone graft cannot be harvested. In such cases, better to go for a demineralized freeze dried bone graft, which has a comparatively better acceptable ratio for an autogenous bone graft. If you didn't get a autogenous bone graft, if you couldn't able to get a demineralized freeze dried bone graft, then you think about the alloplast and xenografts. So the order of preference should be an autograft first, followed by a allograft, then xenograft or alloplast. Right? Once the graft material has been selected, then we have to go for a graft placement. So when we are going for a particulate graft placement, for example a freeze dried bone graft, you gently fill the site, surgical site, with incremental amount of graft material with light pressure. Don't compactly pack the graft. When we compactly pack the graft, what will happen? The bone cells cannot infiltrate or penetrate inside the bone graft because the bone graft is compactly packed. So the ideal bone graft should have some space between each and every graft, so that the osteoblast cells or the blood cells can go and pass between these graft materials and start regeneration. If there is no space between the graft materials, then the blood cells will not able to go to the site and start regeneration. It will take longer time for its regeneration. It has to wait till the resorption of these materials, then only it will start regeneration. Better you have to fill the surgical site, the defect, with an incremental pressure and overfill the graft defect with the graft material, so that the adequate amount of graft material is there and it has adequate amount of space between each and every graft material, so that the blood cells can go there, induce osteoblast formation and regeneration. Once the graft material is placed, then you have to replace the flap over the graft. If you think the graft material which you have placed can contain without any membrane, you can just close the flap with the sutures. If you think the graft material cannot be contained in the place, then you have to think about keeping a guided tissue regeneration, a membrane over the graft material for guided tissue regeneration, and then cover the flap. So when it comes to soft tissue coverage, you need to achieve a primary closure. So you should not leave any graft material or a membrane exposed after the surgery. It should not be exposed. If you think there is not adequate amount of the flap to cover the entire graft material, then think about pedicle graft. Either coronally displace the flap or rotate the flap distally or mesially so that you can cover up the entire graft and the membrane. If you cannot achieve the coverage, then you have to think about a soft tissue graft like free gingival graft or a connective tissue graft to cover the graft and membrane. Ideally, we should achieve a primary closure after the grafted surgery. Once we achieve a primary closure, it will result in primary healing. So you have to think about a tension-free closure and a complete primary closure without any graft material exposed. So post-operative periodontal management, post-operatively advise the patient with antibiotic and plaque control, either both with mechanical plaque control with proper brushing techniques, and then mouthwash, preferably a chlorhexidine mouthwash should be given post-operatively to prevent infection. So when it comes to evaluation, once you do a regenerative procedure, don't probe the region for next 6 months, because the bone regeneration will take 6 months time for it complete regeneration. If you are going to do any probing before these 6 months, you are damaging the healing site, thereby you are decreasing the regenerative capacity of the site. So don't probe the region for 6 months if you have kept some graft material in the site for regeneration, basically regeneration of bone. If you want to regenerate only connective tissue, the probing can be done after 21 days. The connective tissue healing will happen in 21 days, but we need bone to form. Our bone regeneration will take 6 months time for its regeneration. So these are all some surgical photographs and radiographs. You can see a preoperative radiograph and intrabony defect, and post-operative radiograph where the defect has been completely filled. You can able to see the difference between the preoperative and post-operative radiograph. The clinical pictures, you can able to see a UNC 15 probe has been used to evaluate the preoperative probing depth, and a UNC 15 probe has been used to re-evaluate the post-operative probing depth. You can able to see the amount of regeneration achieved, almost around 6 millimeters of regeneration achieved post-operatively after the regenerative surgery. This was done after 6 months. The probing has been done after 6 months. The bone exposure and re-evaluation have been done after 6 months. This is a clinical picture of pre-operative and post-operative. You can see some mild recession in the site, but the site is better. So to summarize what we have seen with regenerative, graft associated regenerative procedure is, we have seen about different types of graft material available. Examples: autogenous bone graft, allografts, xenografts and alloplast, and the concepts of using the bone graft. What is the main concepts? The idea of using a bone graft is to have an osteogenesis and result in bone formation. The graft material should have the potential of inducing osteoblast and regenerate bone, but most of the time what we get is osteoinduction, either attracting the osteoblast from other side to the site, or osteoconduction, just like act like an inert material in the site to act as a filler, so that the osteoblast, whenever the osteoblast encounter the site, it will come and repopulate the site and result in regeneration. Yes, right? Thank you.